Welcome. You are here now, and that is enough. There is nothing else that needs your attention tonight, nothing waiting, nothing unresolved, nothing that cannot rest until morning. You have come to the end of your day, and the end of the day is a soft and patient place, a place that has been waiting for you all day without any urgency, without any demand, simply waiting, the way a warm room waits, the way a bed waits, the way the quiet at the end of a long day waits, entirely ready, entirely without expectation, entirely yours. Take a moment to feel where you are. Feel the surface beneath you, how it accepts your weight completely, how it has been holding people in rest for as long as it has existed and knows how to do this without any effort. Feel your body settling into it, your shoulders, your back, your legs, the back of your head, each part of you pressing down gently into whatever supports you, and the support simply being there, solid and warm and entirely reliable. Let your shoulders drop, just a little more than they are now. Let your jaw release, if it has been holding without you noticing. Let your hands open, your fingers uncurl, your arms lie flat and still. There is nothing for your hands to do tonight. There is nothing for any part of you to do except to rest, which your body already knows how to do, which it has been doing every night of your life, which requires nothing from you at all except that you allow it. Tonight, I am going to tell you about a city at night. A city that existed a long time ago, in a time we call the Victorian era, in the great grey city of London, in the latter half of the 19th century. Not the London of grand events or famous people, not the London of history books, but the other London, the quiet London, the domestic London, the London of ordinary streets and ordinary houses and ordinary people at the end of their ordinary days, drawing their curtains and lighting their fires and settling into the warmth of their parlours while the city outside grew quieter and the gas lamps burned their soft yellow light into the November fog. There is nothing alarming in this story. There is no mystery, no drama, no danger of any kind. There is only the city settling into its night, and one particular street in one particular neighborhood, and the warm interiors of the houses on that street, and the small, ordinary, deeply unhurried lives of the people inside them, going about the quiet business of an evening at home in a world that was slower and dimmer, and in many ways softer than the world we live in now. You do not need to remember anything I tell you. You do not need to follow every word or learn anything or keep track of anything. Simply let the story wash over you, the way the yellow fog of a Victorian evening washes over the stones of a London street. Softly, slowly, without asking anything in return, simply present, simply there, simply good. Before we step into that city, take one slow breath. Breathe in through your nose, gently, feeling your chest and your belly rise just slightly, and then breathe out through your mouth, long and easy and completely, letting everything go with that breath. Every thought you were carrying, every piece of the day that has been following you, every small worry, every plan, every unfinished thing. Just breathe it all out, slowly, and let the next breath come in clean and easy, and let your breathing settle into whatever rhythm it wants, which is the right rhythm, which requires nothing from you, which has been happening all your life without any assistance. Your body is growing heavier now. Your legs are heavy. Your arms are heavy. The back of your head is heavy against your pillow. There is a warmth gathering in you, the warmth of rest beginning, the warmth of the day finally letting go, the warmth of a body doing exactly what it is meant to do at this hour of the night. Let that warmth be there. Let it spread. Let it reach the corners of you, slowly, the way warmth from a fireplace reaches the corners of a room. Not all at once, not dramatically, just steadily, gently, arriving in its own time. We are going to a street in London now. A street in the neighborhood of Bloomsbury, or perhaps Islington, or perhaps one of those quiet residential streets in the inner city that have no particularly famous character, that are simply streets of terraced houses, each one much like the next, each one with its small front garden, and its black iron railings, and its painted front door, and its 3 or 4 stories of warm brick rising above the pavement. It is November. It is evening, perhaps 8 or 9 o'clock. The day's work is done for most of the people on this street, and they are inside, behind their curtains, in the warmth of their houses, and the street itself is quiet and dim and wrapped in the particular fog of a London November evening. The gas lamps are burning on the pavement. There are perhaps 6 or 8 of them along this particular stretch of street, each one on its cast iron post, each one burning its soft, yellowish-white flame behind the glass of its lantern, the light not reaching very far, perhaps 20 feet in each direction before it is absorbed by the fog, which is not a thick fog tonight, not one of the famous impenetrable London fogs, but a light fog, a mist really, that softens all the edges and halos all the lights and makes the street feel enclosed, intimate, as though it exists in its own small world separate from the rest of the city. The pavement stones are wet from an earlier rain, not wet enough to have puddles, just damp, their surface slightly shiny in the lamplight, reflecting the gas flames in small, wavering, elongated forms that shift when the flame shifts. The road surface, macadam and packed earth and the residue of the city, is dark and quiet. There are no vehicles at this hour on this street. There is no one walking. The street is simply there, lit by its gas lamps, wrapped in its soft fog, quiet in the November night. The houses on the street are terraced houses of dark London brick. A particular brick that begins its life a warm reddish-brown and becomes, over the decades of London smoke and rain and fog, a darker, more complex color, something between brown and gray and almost black in the places where the soot has gathered most thickly, with paler areas where the rain has washed the face of the brick clean, the whole surface having a richness and depth that comes from time and weather and the particular atmosphere of this city. The houses are 3 stories above the ground floor, plus a basement below the street level, and they stand in their terraced rows with the slight forward lean of old buildings, their facades not perfectly vertical, not perfectly flat, but settled into the particular gentle irregularities of age. Each house has a small front garden, enclosed by iron railings, the railings black and slightly rusty at their bases where they meet the stone, their vertical bars coming to simple points at the top. The gardens are not large, perhaps 6 feet deep, enough for a path from the gate to the front door and a small strip of soil on either side, planted in some cases with low shrubs or a single tree, in others with nothing but the dark winter soil. At this hour, in this light, the gardens are simply dark shapes, their details invisible, their presence felt rather than seen. The front doors are painted, dark colors, most of them, dark green or dark blue or black, the paint slightly worn at the edges and around the brass knockers and letterboxes that catch the distant light of the gas lamps in a dull, warm gleam. Behind most of these doors, warm light shows in the edges of the curtains, the faintest golden line at the top or side of a window where the curtains do not quite meet, or the very gentle glow through heavy fabric that has thinned slightly over years of use, or the brighter rectangle of a fanlight above a door, its colored or frosted glass casting a faint warmth onto the step below. We are going to enter one of these houses. The one perhaps 3 doors from the corner, with the dark green front door and the small bay window on the ground floor and the curtains in that bay window showing a warm amber light within. The house belongs to a family named Whitmore, a middle-class family, a respectable family, not wealthy but comfortable, the kind of family that has a servant or 2 and a piano in the parlor and tea every afternoon at 4 and coal fires in the main rooms through the winter. We are going to spend the evening with them, or rather, we are going to drift quietly through their evening, the way the fog drifts through the street outside, observing without interfering, simply present, simply still. The entrance hall of the Whitmore house is narrow and papered with a dark patterned wallpaper, a William Morris design of repeating leaves and stems in deep green and dark red on a warm ochre ground, the pattern covering every wall from the skirting board to the picture rail, giving the hall a particular enclosed, warm, slightly dim character that is completely typical of this time and this kind of house. The hall floor is of encaustic tiles, geometric patterns in terracotta and cream and black, worn smooth in the center where the most feet have passed. A hat stand of dark wood stands near the door, its arms holding several coats and hats, its base containing an umbrella stand from which several umbrellas and one walking stick protrude. A single gas bracket on the wall near the stairs gives the hall its light, a soft, warm, slightly yellowish light that does not reach into the corners or the upper part of the stairwell, leaving those areas in a comfortable dim that is simply the dim of an evening house, the dim that means the day is done and the bright working light of the daytime is no longer needed. The stairs rise at the end of the hall, their treads carpeted in a dark green runner held down by brass stair rods, the banister of dark polished wood with a final at the bottom that is worn smooth from the hands of everyone who has gripped it coming and going over the years. From behind the closed door to the left of the hall, the parlor door, there comes the very faint sound of the house's evening. A coal fire in the parlor grate, its sound barely audible through the door, just a very low, intermittent crackle, more felt than heard. The distant sound of someone turning the pages of a book, or perhaps adjusting their position in a chair. And from somewhere further back in the house, from the direction of the kitchen below stairs, the faint, pleasant sound of dishes being put away. A soft, ceramic sound, unhurried, the ordinary sound of an evening kitchen being set to rights for the night. The parlor door opens slowly, and a woman steps into the hall. Her name is Margaret Whitmore, and she is perhaps 40 years old, with dark hair beginning to gray at her temples, wearing a plain evening dress of dark green wool. Not a formal dress, not the elaborate dress she might wear for company, but the comfortable, modest dress she wears for the evenings at home, its skirt full and its bodice plain, its only ornament a small brooch of jet at the collar. She is carrying an empty coal scuttle, and she is walking, with the calm, purposeful step of someone doing a small necessary domestic task, toward the door to the servants' stairs that leads down to the kitchen. She moves through the hall without hurry. The coal scuttle is not very heavy when empty, and she carries it easily in one hand, her other hand trailing very slightly along the hall wall as she passes, not for balance but simply as a habitual gesture, the way people touch familiar surfaces in their own homes without thinking about it. She pushes open the servant's door and descends the narrow back stairs, steeper than the main stairs, uncarpeted, their wooden treads bare and slightly hollow sounding underfoot, and enters the kitchen. The kitchen is warm. Warmer than the parlor, warmer than the hall, because the range, a large cast iron kitchen range set into the former fireplace, has been burning all day, and its warmth has soaked into every surface of the room, the stone floor, the plastered walls, the wooden shelves and table and chairs, all of it holding the warmth of the day's cooking and giving it back into the air of the kitchen in that particular domestic, deeply comfortable way that only a kitchen with an all-day fire can do. The kitchen is in the basement of the house, below street level, and its two small windows are set high in the walls, their sills at pavement level outside, and through them the bottoms of the iron railings are just visible against the faint light of the street. The windows are small and the light from them during the day is always a limited, slightly subterranean light, but at this hour of the evening they show only darkness and the faint, reflected glow of the gas lamp on the pavement outside. The kitchen table, a large, solid, plain deal table, its surface scrubbed very white from long years of cleaning, holds the last evidence of the evening's work. A clean cloth folded at one end, a row of washed cups and plates drying on a rack, a bowl covered with a cloth. The cook, a stout woman named Mrs. Briggs, who has been in the Whitmore household for 7 years, is putting away the last of the washed crockery in the dresser along one wall, each piece placed carefully on its shelf, the sound of them a soft, familiar sound, one piece at a time, each one set down without clatter, without hurry. Margaret sets the coal scuttle beside the range, and exchanges a few quiet words with Mrs. Briggs. Nothing dramatic, nothing important, just the small domestic exchange of an employer and a cook at the end of an evening, something about the breakfast arrangements for tomorrow, something about whether the bread needs ordering. Mrs. Briggs answers in her plain, unhurried way, and Margaret nods, and picks up the refilled coal scuttle. Mrs. Briggs has already filled it from the coal box in the corner, which is what she always does when she sees it brought down, without being asked, and goes back up the stairs. Let yourself settle a little more deeply now. Your body is so heavy and so still. Your breathing is slow and even and entirely effortless. The warmth of the Victorian kitchen is far away, but it is there, somewhere in the soft periphery of your awareness, warm and dim and smelling of coal smoke and bread and the clean, honest smell of a well-scrubbed table. Let it be there. You do not need to go toward it. Simply let it exist, softly, somewhere near. Back in the parlor, Mr. Whitmore is sitting in his armchair beside the fire. He is a man of perhaps 45, solidly built, with a heavy mustache that he keeps very neatly trimmed, and he is wearing his house clothes, the comfortable dark trousers and wool waistcoat and loose jacket that he changes into every evening when he returns from his office, the clothes that mean the working day is over and the evening at home has begun. He is reading the newspaper. He has been reading it for perhaps 30 minutes, working through it in his methodical way, each section in order, each page turned slowly and carefully. The newspaper is the evening edition, large, broadsheet pages of dense gray text, slightly smudged at the edges from handling, smelling of ink, the pages making the particular soft, slightly resistant sound of newspaper being turned and folded. Mr. Whitmore holds it in both hands, slightly extended before him, angling it toward the light from the gas mantle on the wall above and to his right. He reads without particular expression, his eyes moving steadily across the columns of text, occasionally pausing, occasionally going back to reread a sentence, occasionally turning the page with a slow, deliberate folding. The fire in the grate burns before him. It is a coal fire in a cast iron grate set into a tiled fireplace surround, the tiles a dark green with a simple floral pattern, the surround of dark polished wood, the mantelpiece above it bearing a small ornamental clock, 2 candlesticks, and a glass-domed arrangement of dried flowers and grasses that Margaret's mother gave them many years ago. The fire is burning well. Not high, not dramatically, just burning at the comfortable, settled level of a fire that has been going for several hours and has found its own steady rhythm. The coals glowing deep orange and red at their centers, occasional small blue flames moving across their surfaces where the gas in the coal burns, the whole thing giving off a steady, radiant warmth that reaches the 2 armchairs placed before it, and the small sofa and the rest of the room in diminishing degrees. Margaret returns with the coal scuttle and sets it on the hearth beside the fire without interrupting her husband's reading. She sits down in the other armchair, the one on the left side of the fireplace, slightly smaller than his, with a different pattern on its upholstery but in the same dark colors, and picks up her own occupation, which is a piece of needlework in a wooden embroidery hoop, a pattern of flowers on a cream linen ground, worked in colored silks. She has been working on this piece for several weeks and it is perhaps half done, the flowers accumulating slowly in their careful, close stitches, the colors building up from their individual threads into something that is beginning to look like what it is meant to look like. She threads her needle, holding it up slightly toward the gaslight to see the eye, passing the silk thread through on the second attempt, drawing a length of it through and cutting it to the right working length with the small scissors on the chain at her waist. She finds her place in the pattern, consulting the small piece of paper beside her on which she has marked her progress, and begins to stitch. The needle goes in and comes through on the other side, the silk thread following in a smooth, clean pull, the stitch lying flat against the linen ground. In, through, out, pull, in, through, out, pull. The rhythm of it is very slow and very regular, the kind of rhythm that requires just enough attention to keep the hands occupied while leaving the rest of the mind entirely free. The parlor is a comfortable room. The wallpaper in here is a different pattern from the hall, a lighter design of pale gold and cream, large enough to give the room an openness that the dark hall does not have, though the room itself is not large. Perhaps 14 feet by 12, with a bay window at the front and the fireplace on the opposite wall and the door to the hall and a second door to the dining room. The furniture is solid and dark and well made, the 2 armchairs and the sofa, a writing desk against one wall, a cabinet with glass doors showing the good china that is only used for visitors, a low table between the chairs with a lamp, the newspaper, Margaret's sewing box. The piano stands against the wall between the 2 doors, its lid closed tonight, its dark polished wood reflecting the gaslight in a long curved gleam. On the mantelpiece clock, the minute hand moves. Its movement is not visible to the eye, you cannot see the hand moving, only notice that it is in a different position from where it was a moment ago. The clock ticks. Each tick is very small, very clean, a precise, mechanical sound that marks the seconds with complete regularity, and the seconds accumulate into minutes and the minutes accumulate into the evening and the evening accumulates into the night, and none of this has any urgency to it, none of this is going anywhere in a hurry. The clock on the mantelpiece shows 20 minutes past 8. This is the middle of the evening in the Whitmore household, the time between dinner, which was at 7, and the later hour when they will go upstairs to bed, which will be around 10 or 10:30. These 2 hours are the hours of the parlor, of the fire, of the newspaper and the needlework, of the comfortable shared silence of 2 people who have been married for many years and who have no particular need to fill the quiet between them with words. They are not in silence, exactly. There is the clock. There is the fire. There is the very faint sound of the street outside, barely audible through the heavy curtains and the glass of the bay window, but there, a very faint occasional sound of a distant carriage on a neighboring street, or the faint call of someone far away, or nothing at all, simply the quiet of the November night. And there is the sound of the house itself, the small sounds of the building existing, the occasional soft settling of a beam or a board in the cool of the evening, the very faint sound from below of Mrs. Briggs finishing her kitchen work, the distant sound of the young maid's footsteps in the room above where she is making up the fires for the night. Upstairs, The Whitmore children are in bed. There are two of them, a girl of 12 named Edith and a boy of 9 named Thomas, and they have been in bed since 7:30, their rooms quiet, their lights out. Or the lights are supposed to be out. In Edith's room, on the second floor at the front of the house, there is the faintest possible line of candlelight under the door, because Edith has her candle stub hidden in the drawer of her nightstand, and she takes it out sometimes and reads under the covers, which she is not supposed to do and which everyone in the house knows she does. But tonight is not a reading night. Tonight Edith put her book down after 2 pages, and the candle is not lit, and she is simply lying in her bed in the dark, looking at the ceiling, which she cannot actually see in the dark, but which she knows is there. Thomas is completely asleep. He has been asleep since perhaps 5 minutes after his head touched the pillow, which is what he does every night, because Thomas is 9 years old and he spends his days with a great deal of physical energy, and when that energy is spent he simply goes to sleep, immediately and completely, the way only children and very tired adults can sleep, without transition, without lying awake, just gone. Edith lies in her bed and looks at the ceiling she cannot see. She is not troubled. She is not thinking about anything in particular. She is simply lying in the way that 12-year-olds sometimes lie, in that particular space between not being sleepy and not being quite awake, where the body is still and the mind moves in small, undirected circles, thinking about nothing that matters, drifting from one small thing to another without any thread connecting them. She can hear the clock in the hall below, the same clock that ticks in the parlor, or perhaps the hall clock, which also ticks, which is a slightly deeper tick, slightly slower, the two clocks not quite in synchrony, and so creating a small, irregular double rhythm of ticking that she has listened to every night of her life in this house, and which is simply the sound of the house at night, simply the sound of time passing in the way that time always passes, steadily and without stopping. The covers of her bed are heavy, a wool blanket and a thick counterpane of white cotton, both of them tucked in firmly at the sides and bottom, making a tight, warm envelope that holds her body very snugly, very still. The pillow beneath her head is soft and slightly cool against her cheek. The room smells of the lavender that her mother puts in the linen chest, and of the cold ash in the fireplace which had a fire earlier in the evening to warm the room before bed, and which has now gone entirely out, and of the particular smell of a child's room at night, which is a warm, faintly sweet, entirely comforting smell. Her eyes close, open, close again, and stay closed this time, because the ceiling she cannot see is no longer of any particular interest, and the thoughts that were moving through her have become softer and less distinguishable from each other, and the warmth and the weight of the covers and the small sounds of the house are simply there, simply the texture of the night, simply the familiar and entirely safe world of her own room in her own house on her ordinary November night. Let yourself close your eyes now too, if they are not already closed. Let the world beyond your eyelids become simply the warm dark that it is, and let that warm dark be enough. Let it be everything, let it be the whole world for a little while. There is nothing to see and nothing to watch and nothing to keep track of. There is only the warmth and the quiet and the slow and easy rhythm of your breathing, which is happening all by itself, which has always happened all by itself, which will continue to happen without any assistance from you for the rest of this night. Downstairs in the parlor, the fire has settled lower. The coals are deeper orange now than they were an hour ago, the flames smaller, the occasional blue flame less frequent. The room is still warm, will stay warm for another hour or two from the heat stored in the coal and the grate and the walls around the fireplace. But the fire is past its most active phase and has entered the quieter, longer burning phase of good coal, the phase where it gives off more heat than light, where it is more felt than seen. Mr. Whitmore has folded his newspaper and set it on the side table. He is sitting now with his hands resting on the arms of his chair, looking at the fire, doing nothing. He is not troubled. He is not thinking about anything in particular. He is simply a man sitting beside his fire at the end of a day, looking at the coals, in the particular state of complete restfulness that comes when the day is done and the evening is well advanced, and the body has been warm and comfortable for long enough that everything that was held and carried through the day has been slowly released, like a fist gradually opening. Margaret is still stitching. She has made perhaps an inch of progress on the flower she is working, a small stylized rose in shades of pink and deep red, its petals building up one small stitch at a time, each stitch perhaps 2 millimeters long, the whole flower perhaps an inch across when finished. She has perhaps 30 or 40 more stitches before the flower is complete, and then she will move to the next one, and the piece will be a little further along than it was, and that will be enough for tonight. The mantelpiece clock strikes the half-hour, 9:30, with a single, soft, clear note that hangs in the air of the parlour for a moment, and then fades into the general quiet of the room. Both Margaret and her husband hear it, and acknowledge it with a small internal noting, a small adjusting of the sense of where the evening is, and then it is gone, and the room returns to its tick, and its fire sound, and its silence. Shortly after the clock strikes, Margaret sets down her needlework. She smooths the linen in the hoop once with her thumb, feeling the stitches just completed, checking their evenness with a touch rather than a look, and then folds the hoop into her sewing box and closes the lid. She stands and goes to the fireplace and places one more piece of coal on the fire using the coal tongs, a careful placement, not dropped but set, positioned to give the remaining coals the best chance of burning slowly through the rest of the evening without either dying too soon or burning too high. The coal settles with a small, soft sound onto the existing coals, sending up a brief increase in the small flame, and then the fire settles back to its lower, patient burn. She goes to the window and draws back the curtain just slightly to look out at the street. The fog is still there, slightly thicker now than earlier in the evening, or perhaps it only seems thicker in the darkness. The gas lamp on the pavement directly outside casts its halo of diffused yellow-white light into the fog. The light not going very far, but what it does reach it renders with that particular soft quality of gaslit fog. Everything slightly blurred, slightly warm, slightly as though it is seen through something fine and slightly opaque. The stone of the pavement darker and wetter, the iron railings of the house opposite barely visible, the houses beyond them not visible at all, only a general, warm darkness where they must be. She lets the curtain fall back. The street is as it always is at this hour. She turns back to the room and picks up the candlestick from the side table and lights it from the gas mantle, holding the wick to the gas flame, watching it catch, drawing the candle away with its small, new flame established, and carries it to the door. She says good night to her husband, a quiet word, nothing elaborate, the good night of people who will see each other in a few hours when he too comes up, and he nods and says good night in return, already returning his gaze to the fire, and she goes out into the hall, pulling the parlour door gently closed behind her. The hall is dim now, the gas bracket still burning but turned low, as it always is by this hour, giving just enough light to navigate by. Her candle adds its small, warm, moving light to the hall, and she carries it ahead of her up the stairs. The stairs at night have a different quality than the stairs in the daytime, the carpet runner darker, the shadows deeper, the upper part of the stairwell dimmer than the lower. Her hand finds the banister, and she goes up steadily, the candle casting its moving light and shadow on the wallpaper of the stairwell, the pattern of it animated for a moment by the moving flame, the leaves and stems seeming to shift very slightly, and then she is past that section and the candle moves on. She pauses outside Edith's door. She listens for a moment. Silence. Complete silence from inside the room, the silence of genuine sleep, not the silence of a child pretending to sleep, which has a different quality, a slightly held quality, a slight excess of stillness. This is real sleep. She moves on. Outside Thomas's door she does not pause because Thomas has not needed any pausing outside his door since he was very small. She goes to her own room at the end of the landing, opens the door, and enters. Her room is dim. The maid has laid a fire in the grate earlier in the evening, and it is burning low now. Just coals, no flame, but the warmth of it is there, and the room is comfortable rather than cold. She sets her candle on the dressing table and sits down before the mirror. The dressing table is a piece of furniture she has had since before her marriage, a plain mahogany table with a small mirror on a stand and two small drawers on each side, its surface holding a few items, a hairbrush of dark tortoiseshell and silver, a comb, a small pin tray of painted china, a bottle of rosewater, a pair of candlesticks. She looks at herself in the mirror for a moment, not with any particular scrutiny, just the ordinary glance of someone sitting before a mirror, noting the familiar face without any strong feeling about it, and begins to take down her hair. The pins come out one at a time, each one placed in the pin tray with a small, light sound, a tiny click of metal against painted china. There are 8 pins, then 10, then the last 2, and when they are out her hair falls loose around her shoulders, dark and gray-streaked and slightly wavy where the pins have held it, falling to the middle of her back. She picks up the brush and begins to brush it, slowly, in long strokes from the crown of her head downward, the brush moving through the hair with a faint, soft sound, each stroke slow and complete, the hair straightening and smoothing under the brush. She brushes her hair with the same slow rhythm she has used every night for as long as she can remember. The number of strokes is not counted. She does not count them, has never counted them, but the brushing takes perhaps 5 minutes, each stroke following the last in a steady, unhurried sequence, the sound of it very small and very regular in the quiet room. The candle on the dressing table burns steadily. The fire in the grate glows its low orange glow. The mirror reflects the candle and her face and the dark room behind her and the small moving shadow of the candle flame on the wall. When the brushing is done, she braids her hair loosely, a single braid, very simple, using her fingers to divide and cross the sections of hair, the braid forming in her hands without her needing to look at what she is doing because her hands have done this every night for years and know how. She ties the end of the braid with a small ribbon and lays the braid over her shoulder. She opens the small bottle of rose water and puts a few drops on her fingertips and presses them gently against her face, her cheeks, her forehead, the skin at her temples. The rose water cool and faintly fragrant, its smell very clean and very light, the smell of roses that is also the smell of this dressing table, this room, this particular end-of-day ritual that has happened at this table in this room for many years. She puts the bottle back and sits for a moment, simply sitting, her hands in her lap, looking at nothing in particular in the mirror. Then she stands and moves behind the screen in the corner, a decorative screen of 3 panels, its surface covered in a dark fabric with a small pattern, and changes from her evening dress into her nightgown, which has been laid out across the bed by the maid earlier in the evening. A long, loose gown of white cotton, high-necked, its sleeves long and full, the fabric soft from many washings. She puts it on and comes out from behind the screen and goes to the bed. The bed is a large brass bed, its frame catching the candlelight in a warm, dull gleam, the mattress thick and the bed made up with linen sheets and wool blankets and a large eiderdown of pale cream that is very soft and very light despite its substantial depth. The pillows are large and deep, their cases smooth and cool. The maid has turned the bed down, folded back the eiderdown and the top sheet to a neat diagonal, and Margaret sits on the edge of the bed and then lifts her legs and lies down and pulls the covers up over herself. The warmth of the bed is immediate and complete. She arranged herself carefully on the bed, pulling the eiderdown up to her chin, feeling the weight and lightness of it together. That particular quality of a good eiderdown, which is both completely present and almost weightless, which presses down gently without any real pressure, which holds warmth without any feeling of constriction. She lets out a long, slow breath. Let yourself feel that breath. That long, slow breath at the end of the day, the breath that says the day is done, the breath that comes when the body finally reaches its place of rest and allows itself to arrive. Let that breath be yours. Let it move through you, from the center of your chest outward, releasing everything it touches, every last trace of tension, every last bit of the day that you have been holding without knowing you were holding it. Your body is so warm. Your body is so heavy and so still. The bed holds you completely, the way Margaret's bed holds her, the mattress accepting your weight, the covers falling over you with that gentle, complete embrace of good bedding, the pillow cool and soft beneath your head. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to be. There is only this warmth, and this stillness, and the slow, easy rhythm of your breathing, and the quiet of the night. In the parlour below, Mr. Whitmore sits alone by the dying fire. He is not reading now. He is simply sitting, the newspaper folded beside him, his hands still on the arms of his chair, his gaze on the fire. The fire is very low now, the coals mostly grey ash with orange showing only in the deepest parts of them, the blue flames entirely gone, just the slow orange glow of deeply burned coal giving its last warmth into the room. The mantelpiece clock ticks. The house is quiet. After a while, he stirs himself and stands and performs his own small ritual of closing the parlour for the night. He puts the fire guard in front of the grate, a brass and iron screen that stands before the fire and prevents any coal from falling out onto the hearthrug through the night. He turns down the gas mantle on the wall until the flame is the smallest it can be without going out. Just a faint blue-white point of light, barely visible, a pilot flame. He picks up the evening paper and folds it once more and sets it on the writing desk. He takes the candlestick from the hall table. There is always a candle waiting in the hall for this purpose, set out by the maid as part of her evening duties, and lights it from the hall gas bracket, which he then turns off completely, and the hall is left in the very dim light of a single candle. He goes upstairs, his hand on the banister, his steps slow and quiet on the carpeted treads, the candle casting its familiar moving light up the stairwell. He does not pause outside the children's doors. He goes to his dressing room, a small room adjacent to the main bedroom, where his clothes are kept and where he dresses and undresses, a room of his own in the Victorian domestic arrangement that separates these functions from the shared bedroom, and he changes into his nightclothes and performs his small ablutions with the water in the washstand basin, which is cool now, having been brought up by the maid hours ago. He does all of this slowly, in the dim light of his candle, doing what he does every night, his hands knowing what to do, his body moving through its routine without any particular conscious direction. He enters the bedroom quietly. Margaret is already asleep, or nearly so, her breathing slow and even, her form beneath the eiderdown still. He sets his candle on his nightstand and lifts the covers on his side of the bed and gets in carefully, slowly, not wanting to disturb her, and pulls the covers up and lies still. The candle burns on his nightstand. He looks at the ceiling for a moment, the ceiling of the bedroom, its plaster slightly yellowed from years of candlelight and gaslight and the general atmosphere of a Victorian house, its central rosette from which the gas fitting protrudes, and then he reaches out and pinches the candle flame between his dampened fingers, the flame going out silently, and the room is dark. The room is very dark. Not completely dark. There is the faintest possible light from the gap between the heavy curtains, the residual light of the street gas lamps and the fog outside, a light so faint it is barely distinguishable from darkness, just a slightly less dark gray at the edges of the window. But essentially dark, the kind of Victorian bedroom dark that is deeper than most modern rooms achieve, because there are no electric lights outside, no bright signs, no orange sodium glow of a modern city, just the dim, warm, widely spaced circles of gas lamps in the fog, their light not reaching into the upper stories of the houses on this street. Mr. Whitmore lies still. His breathing slows. Margaret's breathing is slow, and even beside him. The clock in the hall ticks. From somewhere in the house, a final small settling sound, a floorboard, a pipe, and then nothing. The house is entirely quiet. Outside, the street is entirely quiet. The fog is thicker now. It has been thickening through the later hours of the night, as November fogs in London do, building up from the river, and from the cold air, and from the particular atmospheric conditions of this city in this season. The gas lamps on the pavement are now simply four small, round, entirely soft glows in the fog, their light not reaching the pavement below them, absorbed by the fog before it can arrive. The street is invisible, the pavement, the railings, the houses across the road, all of it dissolved into the fog, existing as certainties of location rather than visible things, known to be there even though they cannot be seen. The sound of the city at this hour is almost nothing. A very distant, very faint, low sound that might be a train somewhere far to the north, or might be the river, or might simply be the city itself, the great, slowly breathing organism of London, existing in its sleep. A single foghorn from the Thames, very far away, its low, long note reaching through the fog and the distance and the night to this particular street, muffled and softened to almost nothing, barely there, a sound heard at the very edge of hearing. Let that sound be the last thing you notice. That very distant, very soft, very low sound of the foghorn, barely there, barely anything, more a vibration than a sound, more a feeling than a hearing, the feeling of something large and slow and completely unhurried somewhere very far away, doing its work in the night, sounding its long note into the fog that covers the river and the city and the streets and the houses and the sleeping people in the sleeping houses, the note going out into the fog and being absorbed by it, becoming part of the fog, becoming part of the night. You are so still. You are so warm. Your breathing is so slow and so completely effortless, happening all by itself, the way it has always happened, the way it will continue to happen through the rest of this night, carrying you deeper and deeper into rest with each slow, easy, entirely natural breath. The Victorian house on the quiet London street is dark and silent. Every room is still. The fire in the parlour grate is a handful of warm ash, giving its last warmth to the room through the fire guard, the guard casting its slight shadow pattern on the hearth rug. The kitchen below is clean and quiet, the range ticking very softly as its metal cools, the banked fire inside it glowing its private glow, seen by no one. The hall is dark. The stairs are dark. The children's rooms are dark and silent. The main bedroom is dark and silent. Every room in the house is doing what rooms do at night, which is simply to exist, to hold their contents, to be warm, to be still, to be the container of the sleeping lives inside them. Every house on the street is the same. Every house behind its dark brick facade and its iron railings and its painted door and its heavy curtains is doing the same thing, holding its sleeping inhabitants in its warm and quiet rooms, the fires low or out, the gas lamps dark, the floors still, the stairs empty, the beds full of sleeping people who have put down their days and picked up their sleep and are somewhere that is not here, not this street, not this city, not this night, but somewhere without address, somewhere that opens only in sleep. The fog outside has reached its deepest, quietest hour. It is perhaps 2 in the morning, or 3, that part of the night that is furthest from both the day that has passed and the day that is coming, the part of the night that is most entirely night, most entirely its own thing, not a remainder of the evening and not yet an approach to the morning, just the pure and patient deep center of the night. The gas lamps on the street are all still burning. They burn all night, every night, tended by the lamplighter who will come before dawn to turn them down. But their light is entirely absorbed by the fog now, each lamp visible only as a faint, round, slightly warm darkness in the larger darkness of the fog, not actually casting any visible light on anything, just being there, just burning, just doing what they do. The street is empty. Not a footstep, not a voice, not a wheel on the stone. Just the fog, lying over everything, its particular quality of muffled silence making the ordinary silence even deeper, absorbing any small sound that might occur, turning the street into a kind of padded quiet, a quietness that has texture and depth. The river is somewhere to the south, a mile or 2 perhaps, and the fog from the river is the deepest fog, the thickest fog, the fog that has come off the cold water and moved inland and settled into the streets and the spaces between the buildings and the gaps between the railings and the crevices of the stone. The city and the river and the fog are all one thing tonight, all part of the same enormous, patient, deeply quiet system that is London in the small hours of a November night in the latter part of the 19th century. In the bedroom of the Whitmore house, 2 people are sleeping. Their breathing is slow and deep and entirely regular, the breathing of people in the deepest part of their sleep, their bodies completely still under the eiderdown, their minds somewhere entirely other than this room, this house, this street, this city, this century. They are breathing. They are warm. They are safe. They are entirely at rest. In the children's rooms, 2 more sleeping people, smaller, their sleep even deeper, even more complete, the absolute sleep of children who have used up their days entirely and require nothing now except to be unconscious for the necessary hours until the morning returns them to themselves. In the kitchen below, Mrs. Briggs is asleep in her small room beside the kitchen, a plain, small, warm room with a single bed and a small fireplace of her own, the fire banked for the night, the room warm and dim and smelling of the kitchen it adjoins. She is sleeping on her side, her face turned toward the wall, her breathing the slow, patient breathing of a woman who has been on her feet since 5 in the morning and has earned her rest completely. The house breathes. Not literally, of course, but in the way that houses breathe at night, the air moving very slowly through the spaces between walls, between floors, through the gaps around doors and windows, the outside cold meeting the inside warmth in a slow, continuous, barely perceptible exchange. The house holds its occupants. It has held them for years and it holds them now and it will hold them through the rest of this night, its walls and its floors and its roof all doing what they were built to do, which is simply to contain, to shelter, to keep the warmth in and the cold out, to be a house. Let the house hold you now. Let whatever holds you, the bed, the covers, the room, the warmth, be your house, your shelter, your container for this night. You are held. You are warm. You are completely and entirely safe. There is nothing outside this warmth that needs you. There is nothing asking you to return to the world before the morning comes, and the morning is very far away, and there is nothing to do until it arrives except to rest, except to breathe, except to let go of everything and allow the night to do what it does, which is to hold you, which is to restore you, which is to carry you in its dark and quiet arms through these hours of deep rest. The fog outside the Whitmore house is beginning, very gradually, to thin. Not in any way that is visible. Nothing has changed that you could point to, but the process has begun somewhere in the larger meteorological system of this night, a slight shift in the air pressure or the temperature that will, over the course of the next few hours, very slowly begin to lift the fog and return the street to visibility. But that is hours away. Right now the fog is still complete, still deep, still wrapping the street in its soft, patient silence. The gas lamps burn on. The fire in the parlor grate has gone entirely cold. The clock in the hall ticks on. The river moves in its slow, dark way a mile to the south, carrying its water toward the estuary and the sea. The stars are invisible above the fog, but they are there. The same stars that are above every city and every field and every ocean at this hour. The stars that have been above London every clear night since before there was a London, burning their vast, indifferent, beautiful fires in the darkness above the clouds and the fog and the rooftops. The night is long. The quiet is deep. The fog is soft. The fires are low. The people are sleeping. Your breathing is so slow now, so even. In and out, the same slow rhythm, the same easy, effortless breathing that has been carrying you through this story and through this night. You do not need to manage it. You do not need to make it slower or deeper or more regular. It is already exactly right. It has always been exactly right. Simply let it continue, the way the clock in the hall continues, the way the gas lamps continue, the way the river continues, steadily, without effort, without urgency, because continuing is what they do, because continuing is what you do. The Victorian street is quiet. The house is still. The fog is soft. The fires are low. The children are sleeping. The parents are sleeping. The cook is sleeping. Everyone is sleeping. The clock ticks. The gas lamps burn. The river moves. The fog breathes. And you are here. Warm. Still. Breathing. In. And out. So slowly. So easily. So completely without effort. Let everything become a little quieter now. Let the street become a little quieter. Let the house become a little quieter. Let even this voice become a little quieter, a little more distant, a little more like something heard at the very edge of sleep, where sounds are still there but they are no longer quite sounds, where they are more like the memory of sounds, like the feeling that sounds were there, like the warmth left in a room after the fire has gone out. The fog outside, the gas lamps, the ticking clock, the sleeping children, the sleeping parents, the quiet street, the warm house, the deep, still, entirely patient night, your warm body, your slow breath, in and out. The street is there. The city is there. The river is there. All of it quiet. All of it still. All of it simply being what it is, in the deep, ordinary, entirely unremarkable quiet of a November night in a Victorian city, in the warm and sleeping houses, in the fog-wrapped streets, in the long, slow, deeply restful hours of the night. You are part of this quiet now. Your stillness is part of it. Your breathing is part of it. You and the sleeping house and the quiet street and the soft fog and the slow river are all one thing now, all part of the same deep, patient, entirely peaceful night. The night, the quiet, the fog, the warmth, the sleeping house, your breathing, in and out. The clock ticks, the lamp burns, the fog drifts, the river moves. Somewhere very far away, the foghorn sounds its long, low note, and then it is gone, and the quiet returns, deeper than before, softer than before, more complete than before. Your body is so heavy, your mind is so still, there is nothing to think, there is nothing to do, there is nowhere to be, there is only this, the warmth, the dark, the slow breath, in and out, in and out. The Victorian night is long and quiet and completely still. The house holds its sleeping people. The fog holds the street. The night holds everything. And everything is well. And everything is safe. And everything is warm. And everything is still. Sleep now. Simply sleep. The night is here. The quiet is here. The warmth is here. Everything is well. Everything is very, very well.